Bienvenidos, señoras y señores, to the Bleed Lows podcast. This episode of the Bleed Lows podcast is brought to you by BetOnline. Our partners at BetOnline continue to be the number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest odds, news, and sports developments for the NBA playoffs, Major League Baseball, fights, and NFL futures. BetOnline is your continued source for all sports wagering needs, including live betting and the fan favorite Vegas casino and poker games. It's really easy to get started. Just head to the website or use the mobile device to sign up and use our promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, here we go. It's time. For those of you who are watching on YouTube, or if those of you that are listening, our co-host Alonso is on assignment, and our other co-host, the lovely Alysha del Valle, is also on assignment. But holding down the fort on this episode is Babyface and myself. So the show doesn't stop. We make sure we're providing content for you guys. So let's start off with a recap of that homestand. Babyface, how pissed were you? Or not? I know you were pissed, but were you freaking out after the first three games of the Phillies series?
Yeah, I mean, I was like, what is going on? I mean, I expected, okay, they might lose one or two in that series. They come back and they win the last game, but every game it seemed like they scored in the first inning, right? The Phillies got a couple runs in the first inning. It was like, what is going on with the pitching? And it wasn't just, stringing some hits or whatever. They were giving up home runs like in that first inning, and it was pretty, 2-3 runs in that first inning, and it was constant. It was like the first game, then the second game, the third game, even the fourth game. It's like, what is going on? I mean, that's what kind of got me frustrated and kind of worried. Like, what is going on with the pitching? Like, what happened to the pitching?
Well, I mean, look, we talked about this on a previous episode, and I know you said I have brujo skills, but here's the thing. This is what I was worried about. I did not expect the Dodgers pitching staff to get off to that great start. I mean, before that Phillies series, they were the number one pitching staff in all of Major League Baseball. I knew that wasn't going to be sustainable, especially when the end of the rotation, and then once Kershaw went down. But my biggest concern was that the pitching was carrying them. And then what happens then? The hitting starts coming around, but now they're giving up 6 or 7 runs, and now they got to score 8 or 9 runs to win a game. And that's almost what happened in that Philadelphia series. So as concerning as it was to see guys like Buehler, to see guys like Urias get lit up, I mean, Tyler Anderson, I think he was due. I mean, Tyler Anderson was pitching really well up until that Philadelphia. Do you think that's who Tyler Anderson was? Did you expect to have Tyler Anderson pitch like that for the whole season?
Yeah, I mean, I still, when I heard they got Tyler Anderson, I kind of remembered who Tyler Anderson was or has been, and I haven't really been expecting that much of him. So when he got lit up, I'm like, okay, that's probably what Tyler Anderson is, but I mean, he's been pitching pretty good. I mean, he just pitched, a couple of days ago as well, and I think he gave up a home run right in the first inning, but after that, I think he went 7 innings. So you got 7 from Tyler Anderson. So it's like, okay, I mean, if he can do that, night in, night out, I mean, I think he's definitely something I didn't expect to get that from Tyler Anderson. So I mean, I know they're going to have their bad starts. Julio's going to have a bad start here and there. Walker's going to have a bad start here and there. I mean, it's a little concerning with Walker. He's kind of had a couple bad starts. Even his last start, he just went 5. So he hasn't kind of gotten to where we kind of expect Walker Buehler to be at. I mean, he even went from his tight pants to his loose pants. So he's trying to do everything he can to kind of get himself back to where he needs to be.
Well, and I find it really interesting because last year, Walker got off to that early start, and usually Walker Buehler has been a slow starter. we've heard him talk about that he uses the first half of the season as kind of his spring training to work himself into form. Last year, he started off really hot, but I feel like towards the end of the year, it caught up with him. So I'm wondering if Buehler is maybe pacing himself again this year, and maybe that's why he hasn't been as sharp, that he's still working some kinks out. I mean, that being said, yes, they lost the first 3 games, but that Thursday night game and that Friday night game, they could have won. The Phillies came back Thursday night and beat them in the 9th. So as horrendous as a pitching performance as it was, those games were winnable games, those first 2 games. The Dodgers very easily could have won 3 out of 4 in that series, even though the Dodgers didn't play well, because not only was the pitching not sharp, but the defense I think has been suspect all season. But a lot of the defense led up to unearned runs that really bloated that run total for the Phillies in that. So what I found really interesting was those first 2 games were winnable. If the Dodgers end up winning 3 out of 4 in that series, do we make a big deal? What I find to be a very interesting trend that's going on this season is whenever the Dodgers lose, we have to find somebody that we can point the fingers at. And in those first 2 games, it was Dave Roberts. It was all over the place, right? Dave Roberts blew this. What is Dave Roberts doing? Either because he didn't pull Tyler Anderson early enough, or other in-game decisions. What do you think about that?
I mean, that's pretty much every game. Dodgers lose a game, it's Dave Roberts' fault. Dodgers win a game, it's whoever did something good in that game. Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts, whoever. So it's always on Roberts. The first couple games, I saw it on Twitter, like all over the place. Oh, Roberts did this. I mean, what did he do? I mean, because he kept Julio in for 6 innings or whatever, or Anderson in for. I mean, they had a depleted bullpen. They couldn't, go to the bullpen early. They knew, they're going to have all these games. They had the doubleheader coming up, so they had to kind of have these guys kind of take it for the team. And and it's not, like I said, it's not Roberts that's out there giving up the bombs. It's not Roberts out there that's making the errors. So it's like I still don't understand that when people say like it's Dave Roberts. He doesn't know how to manage this team. He doesn't know how to. I mean, he doesn't know how to motivate this team. He doesn't know how to. Basically, he doesn't know how to do anything.
Right.
And, and this is Dave Roberts is the winningest manager in baseball. I think we mentioned it. In baseball history right now, he has the highest win percentage. Highest win percentage. And I know the haters are going to say, well, look at the team he has or whatever. Well, obviously, okay, look at the team he has. So they're winning games and they're losing games, right? So you can't put everything on Roberts. It just doesn't work that way.
No, I've always heard this adage, and of course it's obviously true, but you need talent to win. Even those teams that are underdog teams that end up winning championships, they have talent. I can't think of one example of a team winning that absolutely had no talent. Like always, with a manager, they either get too much credit or they don't get enough credit. But I did find it very interesting that Dave Roberts was the whipping boy in those first 2 games in the Phillies series.
I mean, a lot of times you hear is, oh, he's not putting them in situations to succeed. I mean, these are professional baseball players. I mean, I think any of them will tell you, hey, if you put me in the 8th, 9th, whatever, to do my job, I need to succeed, right? It doesn't matter where they put you in. If you're a professional baseball player playing at this level, you are expecting of yourself to go out there and succeed. Is it going to happen every time? No, of course not. You're going to fail, every so often. I mean, baseball is a game of failure, right? If you hit, if you get 3 hits out of 10 at bats, you're a 300 hitter. I mean, 3 out of 10, that sounds really bad, right? But you're a Hall of Famer, right? If you do that your entire career. So, of course, guys are going to fail. They're going to be put in there. Dave Roberts is going to think, okay, if I bring in, Kimbrough for the 8th or the 9th, he expects him to succeed, and that player expects themselves to succeed. And like I said, it's most of the time it does happen, but there's going to be times where it doesn't happen.
It's interesting. You brought up Kimbrough. I want to change gears real quick and talk about how he's being used. Do you find it odd that he goes through such long periods of time without getting any work. And I get it. People are going to sit there and they go, well, they had a 5-run lead in this game. And that's kind of how this team has been. They either win by a lot, but not until recently have they had close 1-run games that they've actually won. But there are times where I find myself scratching my head going, gosh, it's really been 5 days since Kimbrel has pitched. Like, don't you think that affects Kimbrel?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look back at how he's been used, when when the games that he has been off for a few days, it's because they've won games where they haven't needed him. So he hasn't had that consistent work where it's like, the 1-run lead, 2-run lead, whatever going. It's been they're usually up by 4 or 5 runs where it's no longer a safe situation, and he's not getting the work. And when he's come in, you kind of see it. He's still a little rusty. I mean,
yeah.
He probably has a handful of appearances. I mean, since spring training to right now, more than a month and a half into the season, we're getting there. And he's probably been in maybe 10 times. That we see him.
Yeah. Excuse me. It was just something that was brought to my attention that I was like, oh wow, that is true. I mean, it's got to affecting him, but yet he still hasn't blown a save. I mean, how many people would have thought, okay, who's going to be the first person to blow a save, Kimbrel or Kenley Jansen? Well, we got our answer the other day because Kenley Jansen blew a save against the Milwaukee Brewers. So I get it that Kimbrel makes people nervous because he's always pitching, it seems, with traffic on. But I am curious how much of that is because he's not as sharp. And it's just the way they've been using this bullpen. I find it very interesting. And I get it because Kimbrel is your closer. But there's periods that you don't see Kimbrel, but yet Daniel Hudson seems to pitch every other day. Brewstar seems to pitch every other day. And those are guys that have had some rough moments, but they come back and they bounce back. And I wonder if they bounce back because they have that consistent work. While Kimbrel is just like, hey, take 5 days off, man.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, you see that rustiness when he comes out. I mean, and another thing that I've noticed with Kimbrel too, and it's kind of odd too, that he's kind of there's been games where he's been getting squeezed a bit. I remember in Colorado, and then on this homestand, it looked like he's getting squeezed, and then either that player gets on, and then somebody hits a home run or something. But there's been instances like that where it just hasn't gone right for him, and then something happens right after that.
Well, I think it's also one of those things that as fans, we need to pay attention to this. And that is, Gagne brought this up when we had him on the show, when he was facing Barry Bonds. And he's just like, look, if I got a 1-run lead, I'm not going to go after you. So I think it's one of those things that especially me, I lose sight of it when I'm watching a game, that these guys are pitching differently depending on what their lead is. I think when Kimbrel comes in and he's got a 3-run lead, he's being more aggressive. And then, that's when all of a sudden he gives up a 2-run home run, and now it's a 1-run game. And when it's a 1-run game, you see that his pitch selection is different. He starts painting the corners. He starts pitching differently. So I've heard, I think somebody on the broadcast had brought this up. That is a sign of a guy who doesn't care about his numbers. All he cares about is getting the win. I think it was Hershiser who said that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just the closer's mentality. I mean, you even saw it with Kenley when he was here. If they came in a non-save situation, they usually end up giving up some runs, and kind of we've seen that with Kimbrel as well. And if he's not closing, he's not, doesn't seem like or if this if it's not a safe situation, it seems like he's pitching a little differently.
Yeah, but it is just very interesting to see how they're handling it. As I mentioned before, it seems that Dodger fans always are searching for blood, somebody that they can point the finger to, somebody that they can hold accountable for the Dodgers disappointing them and not winning a game. We had mentioned Dave Roberts was one of them. Another one, I think, this week was Gavin Lux. Gavin Lux, to me, and this is the beauty of baseball, right? The ability to redeem yourself. He had made that costly error. I mean, look, here's the thing. Gavin Lux, to me, is in the major leagues because of his bat. right? He's not there because of his glove. And obviously, this guy's getting moved around, which is, I think, a tribute to guys like Chris Taylor, who play multiple positions and are very dependable defensively, no matter where you put them. Whether you put Taylor out in the outfield or you put him in the infield, I trust that if the ball's hit to that guy, he's going to make the play. I don't have that same level of trust in Gavin Lux, but I don't know that Gavin Lux was an elite defensive player to begin with. So the fact that everybody was harping on Lux, why, Lux cost us the game. And then what happened on Sunday? His bat made up for that error and he won the game. And all of a sudden, I mean, up until that point, everybody wanted Lux sent back down to the minors or they wanted him traded. He gets that hit. Oh, I never had a doubt in my mind. Lux is my boy. I mean, I think this is what we're going to have to deal with Gavin Lux for the rest of the season. He's defensively, he's going to be a risk out there, but you just hope that his bat will make up for those runs.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. I told you guys. I mean, it got frustrating with Lux making that error. And and he started hot. He started off hot, and he's considerably cooled down. So his bat hasn't even been that great either. And then he looked like he's going to cost them that game, and then he hits that home run. So it's like, yes, hallelujah. Like now he did something to redeem himself. And we mentioned this earlier in the season. This is the year that Gavin Lux has to prove himself that he belongs on this team and in the big leagues. He's got a spot, playing some second, some left. They're kind of moving him around, but this is the season that he has to do something. If it's for his bat, he has to do it with the bat. If he's gonna have, if it's not the strongest glove, okay, but we gotta see something from that bat. And hopefully he can kind of get back to how he started off the season and kind of just be consistent at the plate. And I think since Sunday too, he's had a couple big hits. So hopefully he's getting back on track.
Do you think he would benefit from just playing one position? Like if he clearly had one position and I know this is not going to work because that's not how the Dodgers philosophy is. The Dodgers like those guys that can play multiple positions. But I wonder if he's a guy that just needs that routine. If he's a guy that, because I mean, when they put him in left, he dropped that fly ball that luckily was in foul territory. And I just rolled my eyes because I was just like, oh, this poor guy. I mean, it wasn't bad enough that he made that error. People are going to hate him even more now because he made that. I just wonder if he would benefit defensively if they just stuck to one position with him.
Yeah, I mean, I think if they did do that, I think I'd like to see him more maybe at second, because I see him more as a middle infielder. I mean, he was a shortstop for he's when he's coming up, and so maybe that would help him, knowing that okay, I'm playing second base every day. Kind of he has that consistency, to with the bat and get that feel at second base, just to. If he's out there every day, he kind of knows, who he's playing with at short and kind of gets the feel for, the position a little better and, try it out for a bit and see how he does. I mean, I think it could only help.
I mean, the guy's hitting 260. Would you take that? If I told you at the beginning of the year, Gavin Lux is going to hit 260, would you take that?
Yeah, I mean, nowadays, that's kind of the norm, right? Like, if a guy hits like 260, 250, you're like, okay, that's pretty good, right? When as a couple years ago, like really 260, yeah, okay, whatever. But if he can, if like I said, if he can hit around there, get his timely hits, get those, knock in some runs, you'll take it from him,
No, absolutely. So the Dodgers were able to salvage one game in that 4-game set against the Philadelphia Phillies. And I think maybe that come from behind win on Sunday, thanks to Gavin Lux, might have turned something around for the Dodgers, because then they went ahead and proceeded to sweep the Diamondbacks of Arizona. And I cannot stress enough for them to play 4 games in that short span. I mean, that was
Like
just a nightmare schedule
like
with
under
the
48 hours, right? Like
well, 3 games in under like 48
yeah,
hours. And it was just with a depleted pitching staff. I did not expect that. And the Diamondbacks pitchers, they're starting pitching. They have some guys that have really strong ERAs. So that series made me really, really nervous. But then you realize that Arizona struggles to score runs and that their bullpen is not their starting pitching. The bullpen is a weak spot for the Arizona Diamondbacks. What stood out for you in that Diamondback series?
I mean, I hate seeing this. I hate when they're down early. When the team scores on them in the first inning. But we see that they come back. They come back and they're able to score. And I saw a little bit more that Dodgers are kind of have been that big inning. They'll get maybe in the fourth or fifth inning they'll score a bunch of runs and then they're pretty much quiet the rest of the game. In this Arizona series, it seemed like they had more multiple innings where they were scoring. They were still scoring pretty big, but they were scoring on multiple innings. So that's kind of something that I want to see, continue going forward, where they're not just, it's just not one big inning and that's it. If they spread it out, a couple innings, they get a couple runs here and there. I think it's gonna, keep going. Take that into the next series in Philadelphia.
Well, you know what? I think it's very encouraging to see that the Dodgers offense, the way they reacted in that series against the Diamondbacks, because as I said, the Diamondbacks starting pitching is pretty strong. So for them to put up runs up against them, I think is very encouraging. That we're maybe just going to see a little more consistency out of this offense, and maybe now they're gonna get it's the beginning of a run, right? They've won 5 straight and they're gonna go on this road trip now. We've said this all along that they really haven't been playing great, but as this episode drops, the Dodgers are still in first place and they have the best record in the National League. They're a game up on the show pods. So I think it's encouraging. I want to see how they react to the road trip because they don't. There's always, I mean, they got the Nationals on here, and I know we're going to get to this later, but they always seem to have a letdown. We saw it in Pittsburgh. We saw it on the first go around with the Arizona Diamondbacks. So the fact that that National Series, those last 3 games, are taking place before they come back home, that makes me a little nervous that we're going to see another letdown. But I'm going to give you another opportunity right now to apologize to this man, but the Catman pitched a hell of a game, and he looked good. But again, he's a guy that I feel looks better at home. But are you seeing any signs of consistency? Is the Catman making you change your mind? Are you thinking maybe he can? This is his breakout year.
I mean, I think, like I said, I've always said the Catman is a pretty good pitcher. He just has that inning that really screws him up. Last couple of starts, not as bad. So those innings aren't as bad. So he's, like I said, I still think he can get into the 6th and maybe like Anderson did, get into the 7th. I still think he can do that if he controls his pitch count throughout the game. He's if he stays away from that bad inning, I think he can do it. So let's see how, like you said, let's see how he does on the road, where he has had a little bit more trouble than when he's at home. But yeah, I mean, I like what he's been doing the last couple outings. So I hope he continues to do that.
And it's really interesting, right? Because we sit here and we say, "Oh, he struggles on the road." The guy's ERA is still under 2. I mean, his ERA went up in this last game because going into this last game, his ERA was 1.33. His ERA now is 1.64. So I just want to remind our listeners again, yes, we're sitting here complaining about a guy whose ERA is under 2. So,
yeah. And I think in large part is because we haven't seen that large sample size, so it's been like, for the most part, even on the road, he'd go 3 innings, 4 innings. So it's a small sample because he'd have that one inning where he'd get into trouble and, use 30, 40 pitches. So like I said, we'll see how he does on this trip. But speaking of the trip, they're going to start in Philadelphia, and normally, we'd see that on the schedule, and Philadelphia is what they're under 500 right now, or about 500, right?
They are, and that's
Right.
what cracks me up, right? That the Phillies are under 500, but the way they handled the Dodgers at Dodger Stadium, I was surprised that this team is under 500.
Yeah, so now you normally would think, oh, okay, yeah, they should go in there and win 2 out of 3, or even sweep, right? But the way they came in and manhandled the Dodgers last weekend, now I think the Dodgers are going to be a little bit more up for this series. Maybe a little bit more pumped up to trying to go in there and get a little bit of payback for what they did to them, here in LA. So hopefully, they go out and they come out, ready to go. And I mean, the Padres just went in there and won 2 out of 3 from them. So it's like, what happened? Did the Phillies just come in super hot? I mean, I know Bryce Harper came in like on fire and with a messed up arm, right?
Yeah.
And he just like lit them up. And it's kind of weird too, because we saw Bryce Harper and then we saw Walker coming from the D-backs and kind of did the same thing to the Dodgers. He kind of just lit them up too. It's like what's going on here? So hopefully Harper may be out a couple games in this series that we don't have to see him. So, take that bat out of the lineup, and hopefully the Dodgers can kind of bounce back in Philadelphia.
Let me ask you this, because, of course, in that Philadelphia series, all I kept saying to myself was, well, how come the humidor is not affecting the Phillies? Why aren't the Phillies getting affected by this dead ball? They didn't seem to have any problems hitting the ball out of the ballpark. That game that Julio pitched, he gave up 4 home runs in that game. Is it concerning to you that the Dodgers are not hitting home runs? I heard a stat. It was on the Spectrum Sports Net. It pointed out that there hasn't been a Dodgers team that has been so non-reliant on the home run ball since like the 90s. So the fact that these guys are not hitting for power, is that concerning to you? I'm going to give you this. I'm going to give you this right now. The Dodgers home run leader this season is Mookie Betts with 8 home runs. This is the same Mookie Betts that we were all freaking out about because he had a slow start. If we project this over the rest of the season, that means the highest guy on the Dodgers is probably maybe going to get to 30 home runs. And that's just not something that we've seen in the last few years. Other than that, everybody else, the next highest after Mookie with 5 home runs, and let me stop you here, is Cody Bellinger, a guy who is hitting 205 right now, a guy who has seemed to struggle since being named the NL Player of the Week. Tell me, the lack of power, is that concerning to you?
I mean, not so much, as long as, they're getting their hits. I mean, we have a guy like Freeman who had like 3 doubles in one game, right? And I mean, Freeman hasn't even had that many home runs. I think were his only home runs against the Braves.
He has 4 home runs.
Okay.
He has 4 home runs.
Then he had like 2 of them against the Braves, right?
It seems like it. Yeah.
So, I know the last couple of seasons, they've had like record-setting like home run numbers for the club, and them not being as reliant. I mean, I think that's one of the things too that a lot of people the last couple of seasons have been saying, like, this team is just home run reliant, right? It's like, go big or go home, right? So they're always trying to get the home run. So I think if they're showing other ways of scoring, I mean, that's better, right? It's I'll take that, right? I mean, of course, yeah, you want to see the home run when they kind of need it, but if they're scoring with doubles and triples, hey, I'll take that all day.
And it's funny because we sit here, we're talking about, well, the Dodgers don't hit home runs. The Dodgers offense is inconsistency. What is the team that leads all of Major League Baseball in run differential right now? your Los Angeles Dodgers. So again, this is all like, say what you will, the numbers don't lie, or the numbers will tell you whatever story that you want to tell. I think the eye test, if you look at this team, we all think, well, they're not clicking on all cylinders yet. And Alonso has said this before. If this team is not clicking on all cylinders now, how scary are they going to look once they are clicking on all cylinders?
Yeah, because you said it. I mean, Belly's gotten a couple big hits here and there, but he's still not what we're expecting of Bellinger, right? He's still not there. Turner isn't hitting like he was hitting last season, leading the league. He's not there yet. Muncy's not there yet.
Trey Turner. You're
Trey Turner. Right. Justin Turner is actually starting to. He hasn't been, but the last couple games looks like he's kind of starting to get back to where Justin Turner should be at. Max Muncy isn't where he should be at, until a couple of weeks ago, Mookie Betts wasn't there, and Mookie's now he's on fire. He's been tearing it up the last couple of games. So we've had Mookie, Freeman's always getting his hits. Will Smith, he's had a couple big hits. I guess he's having his normal Will Smith year. So what's going to happen when we see Muncy and Bellinger and Trey Turner start to get it going? I mean, yeah, that's pretty scary.
And and maybe this, and it's funny, I keep harping on Jeff Passan, right? Because he made that comment that this is going to be the greatest lineup of all time, right? But maybe that's what this lineup is. It's a lineup that doesn't depend on one person to carry you. This is going to be a lineup where maybe if you look at it, not one person's numbers are going to stand out and be like, oh, wow, they're having a monster year. But every night it's a different guy who's beating you. And that's got to be really, really tough for another team to sit there and be like, man, all right, we're not going to pitch to this guy. Now this guy beats us. All right, we're not going to let this guy beat us. And now this other guy in the lineup beats us. So maybe this is just all a good thing for the Dodgers, that it's spread out through the lineup.
And who else had a really good week in the last couple of games as well? Someone you don't even expect, Eddie Rios.
Yes.
I mean, Edwin Rios is coming off the bench and hitting bombs and like being productive. And even Freeman said it the other day. It is super hard for a guy that isn't in the lineup every day and not knowing when he's going to play to come out and produce like this. And he's been doing this his entire career. I mean, he's come off the bench and he hits bombs. Last year we were like, what the heck is wrong with Edwin Rios? But he had a busted shoulder, so now he's healthy and he's doing it. And I think I saw a stat prior to last season, like he was averaging like every 11 or 12 at bats, he was hitting a home run. You know what he's doing now? It's like every 9 at bats.
That's why they call him Babe Rios. He is Babe Rios. I it's a tribute. I wonder if he is just one of those guys, and it's really interesting to me if he's just one of those guys that he is tailor made for this. I don't want to even call it a utility role, because really all he is a DH and a third baseman. But being a bench player, I feel like he just has the mentality. He is really successful in that role. And we've seen, and especially players that have played with the Dodgers that were bench players that wanted to be everyday players and just don't, the success does not translate. And I know everyone, just say it, Juan, just say it. We're talking about our friend Kike Hernandez. Kike seems to be struggling in Boston right now, right? In terms, I don't know if Jock is an everyday player, but these are guys that wanted to be everyday players, and that's why they left the Dodgers. And look, you got to have that mentality, right? You want to be able to play. You want to play every day. That's how your belief in you. So the fact that Rios does this and he's making it look easy, like what he's doing is really, really hard, man, to sit on the bench. And then you got to come in, and sometimes you're facing guys that are throwing 100 miles an hour and you just got in the game. I mean, yeah, you're right. I don't give that man his flowers, because I I am thoroughly impressed with Babe Rios.
Yeah, I mean, and with what Rios is doing, I mean, yeah, he's doing it now, and like you mentioned it, I mean, the Dodgers kind of have a history of doing this with guys, right? Kike excelled when he was coming off the bench and putting him wherever and putting him in situation. He excelled. Jock would do the same thing. Um, Even CT3, before he kind of got more consistent playing time. I mean, this is kind of something that you've seen the Dodgers do, and I think they didn't really have it last season. We thought like Zach McKinstry was going to kind of do
Right.
that at the beginning of the season. He started out hot, and then he got hurt, and then that kind of they didn't really have a bench last year. So we're seeing it with Rios. Maybe hopefully Hanser seems like he's a pretty consistent hitter, so hopefully he can come in and do the same thing when he gets his chance as well.
Absolutely. So let's switch gears. I want to get your opinion on this. I found it very interesting because we finally had a David Price sighting. And we talked about this on a previous episode where there was this rumor that the Dodgers were thinking of trading David Price. And I thought maybe there might be some legitimacy to that rumor because of the fact that David Price just hasn't been pitching. And the reason why David Price hasn't been pitching is because David Price had COVID, right? So they were giving him the time to recuperate from COVID. But then there were some comments in the paper from David Price saying that he's ready. It's up to the Dodgers. It's up to the Dodgers to use me whenever I'm using and whenever they need me. I find it very interesting in the fact that they have been struggling, especially this stretch. Kershaw goes down. They're having a hard time getting pitching length from their starters. And, they're sending pitchers down and they're bringing up new pitchers because the bullpen is getting a lot of work. But yet David Price, who is a former starter, and I get it, that he's been now transitioned into a reliever role. But wouldn't you leverage what you can out of David Price for right now until maybe you can get healthy or you can, maybe get some help down the line? Because say what you will, Ryan Pepiot, I don't think is ready yet. We've seen him twice now. He seems to have issues with his control. So I don't know if we can depend on Pepiot. Michael Grove, I think maybe Michael Grove deserves to get another shot and see what we can do. Michael Grove was a victim, of course, of bad defense. So I'm wondering if he gets some solid defense behind him, can Growth maybe give you a few quality starts to try to get some time to buy some time. I mean, it was just reported Kershaw still hasn't thrown a bullpen session. Now, if you hear the Spectrum Sportsnet LA guys, they're all talking about just save Kershaw until after the All-Star break. So if you're not going to bring Kershaw back until the All-Star break, you're really just going to ride with Buehler and Urias. And then you got to hope that Gonsolin finally steps up and he takes that next step. Tyler Anderson is who Tyler Anderson is. And then you have that fifth spot. So why not get David Price a shot? Why not try to stretch him out and see if he can be that fifth starter? Do you find the way the Dodgers are handling David Price odd at all? Like, did David Price just do something, or is it the writing on the wall? The Dodgers clearly do not want David Price on this team.
I mean, it does feel like there is something. I mean, he had the COVID. He came back from the COVID, and then he went to Chicago because he wanted to go to Chicago because he had never been there. So he went with the team, but he was cleared. He was, and then he said they said they were going to rehab him, and then I think he did. Did he do rehab? I never heard of anybody saying that he pitched anywhere for a rehab.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it was just like back sessions in Arizona or what happened, but then they finally bring him back, right?
Yeah.
And then they bring him in like a high leverage situation, right?
Yeah.
And he gets out of it, and he gets out of that inning. So it's like, it's kind of odd, yeah, like how they've used him. I mean, I don't see them stretching him out to be a starter again. I just don't think that they think maybe he doesn't have that in him anymore. I just don't see them doing that. I mean, he's going to be maybe that 1 inning guy, maybe 2 inning guy at best. And as they've used him, ever since he's been here, it's like you don't see him like every 2 to 3 days. You see him like maybe once a week, if that.
Yeah, he gets the Kimbrel treatment. It's like David Price comes out, and you're not going to see him for another week.
Yeah, so it is odd. I mean, it is odd. I mean, why they use him that way? It's just it is what it is.
Do you think they're going to keep Pepio up?
I think yeah. I mean, right now while Kershaw's down, I mean they need those starters. They need.
So you think Pepio right now is the fifth guy?
Yeah, it's probably. I think it might be him and Grove. Maybe they might bounce him back a couple times, and then maybe we'll see. We'll see. A little bit down. Maybe in a couple of weeks, we might see. Bobby Miller. I think he had a nice little showdown. I think this past week with Leiter. So that was a high intense matchup down in a Double-A.
Well, and I find it interesting because one of the things that we and I know I'm going to butcher this. I keep going back and forth with the pronunciation of his name, but Conley, he's down now because he dealt. So the Dodgers signed a lot of projects, and not just a project, but in terms of health. We still haven't gotten any updates on Heaney. We don't know if Heaney's going to come back.
Well, Heaney did. I think he threw a bullpen just the other day, and he said he should be back within weeks. There was kind of speculation that it might be a couple months still, and he said he should be back within weeks. So whether that's 3-4 weeks, we'll see.
And hopefully he can keep the way he started, the season. I mean, if Heaney comes back and all of a sudden. My concern is if Heaney comes back and he's not healthy and then he just starts getting bombed, what that's going to do to Heaney. But the thing that I was trying to get at is the Dodgers signed all these guys like Danny Duffy, who I don't think is going to be ready until the second half of the season. It's still rehabbing somewhere. So you have all these guys that they stocked up. And now I'm just wondering, are they even going to be able to use any of these guys? We asked Alonso Rizzo this, the injuries to a very thin rotation. I'm very curious if they really thought, that Bauer was going to be coming back, and that's why they didn't do it. I mean, eventually, unless these young guys, I'm concerned that they're speeding up the timeline on these guys, and you're going to have Bobby Miller come up here, and Bobby Miller's going to look like Pepio. Where it's going to be like, he's not ready yet. He's not ready yet. Like, what if Pepio can get his control? That I want to see what that Pepio looks like. I want to see a Pepio who can cut down the number of pitches, cut down on the bases of balls, and see what that does. If teams will hit him, or if it's going to be like one of those Gonsolin effects.
Yeah. I mean, I think the Dodgers' plan is kind of get through the first half and kind of. They're waiting for that second half because they'll have reinforcements. Duffy, Dustin May. We should probably see him in the second half of this season. Come back.
You really think Dustin May is coming in the second half?
I think so. I mean, he's posted stuff where he's out already. He's throwing bullpens. He's getting ready. I think we'll see him. Towards the end of this year. So it'd be good to get Dustin May back in there. Caleb Ferguson just came back, and then they sent him back the next day, but. So these, they're getting some of their guys back. We'll see what happens with Canely. Hopefully, it's not another arm situation with him. And Trinan got put up on the 60 game DL, so we're not going to see Trinan until like after the All-Star break as well either. And
I think that's a big if. I think that's a big if. I just don't think we can count on Trinan coming back.
Yeah, I mean. I think it's gonna be something like how they treated some of their pitchers last season. I think and with Kershaw too. I mean, I don't think we see Kershaw for at least another month and a half, and it's pretty sad too because a lot of people the way he was pitching, they were kind of speculating like, hey, you know what, Kersh could get the start at Dodger Stadium for the All-Star game, and it looks like that's probably not going to happen now either.
His ERA was 1.80 before he went down. I mean, he was looking great. He was absolutely great. So yeah, it's very disappointing that guy got the injury, that he went down the way he did. One of the other things I want to transition to, talking about rumors that we had heard about David Price. All of a sudden, I look on social media and there's this rumor about Juan Soto and the Dodgers trading for Juan Soto, and then you see all these ridiculous, trade scenarios. I mean, to get Juan Soto, the Dodgers are going to have to give up so much. Don't get me wrong. I would love to have Juan Soto, but to get Juan Soto, you're going to have to give up your depth. And seeing the way this season has gone so far, you need depth, because if these guys go down, I mean, what are you going to do? If Juan Soto goes down and you have nothing to replace him with, how are you going to get by? And to get Juan Soto, it's probably going to be the big names that you hear. It's going to be the Vargas. It's going to be the Pajes. It's going to be those big prospects to get it. So, I mean, tell me, how did this Juan Soto whole thing start up? And is this even something you would want to pursue?
Now, you know what about this Juan Soto thing? You know what really irritates me and pisses me off about this Juan Soto thing?
Go ahead. You let me know. Let it all out.
I saw images on Instagram and the internet today. Juan Soto in a Dodgers uniform wearing 22. Now, come on. If you're going to Photoshop Juan Soto in a Dodger uniform, don't put him in 22, because we all know what 22 belongs to. At least give him like 23 or something. Right?
Are you saying that's lazy Photoshopping skills? Is that what you're...
I mean, if you're going to go all the way and Photoshop him in a Dodgers uniform, you can't change his number. Come on. Right?
I'm just completely baffled by this. I'm just like, why was it such a slow news day that we had to come up with this? I get it. It seems like maybe the Nationals don't want to pay that guy. And we've seen it, right? Where a team gives a ridiculous amount of money to one player and then it just handcuffs them for, everything else.
I mean, Soto is going to cost so much in trade value and so much in a free agent contract. It's ridiculous. I mean, how much time does he have left with the Nationals? Like, has he got like 2-3 years left?
I do feel that he is locked up for a little bit more. So, right. But I do, the Nationals, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like they did make an effort to try to extend him to a long contract, and he turned it down.
But his numbers, once he goes to arbitration, right, they're going to be pretty high already. He's going to be getting what? Like, is he in arbitration?
Well, he signed a 1-year deal for $17 million. So he technically is not a free agent until 2025. So next year he is arbitration eligible.
So he hasn't even gotten to arbitration. They made him that 1-year deal, $17 million. So once he gets to arbitration, I mean, I think he's probably going to break the record for arbitration.
Oh yeah.
I mean, so he's going to be up there, 25, 30 million while in arbitration. So imagine what he's going to get as a free agent. I mean, people are already saying he's going to probably be, like 500 million.
And that's, and we're talking about his first year of arbitration, because then the following year he'll be eligible for arbitration again. So it's,
so, I mean, I don't even see what type of a trade, can even be offered for him. It's like, what are you going to give up? I mean, your number 1, number 2, and number 3 prospect in your organization for him. It's like, I mean, what are you going to give up for him?
No, I love what the Dodgers are doing. And as much I am a big Juan Soto fan. I would love to see Juan Soto on the Dodgers, but I love what the Dodgers are doing. They got that farm system where they got these guys that are coming up. I'm very excited to see Vargas. Michael Busch is a guy that we don't talk about. These are all guys that are going to be under control, and they fill multiple positions because Justin Turner is towards the end of it. Vargas looks like he's going to be your third baseman of the future. If Gavin Lux is going to be a utility guy. Michael Busch might be your second baseman of the future. I love that the Dodgers had this all set up. And look, when we had Alana Rizzo on the show, she said it. The Dodgers are doing this without blowing up their farm system. To get Juan Soto, you're going to have to blow up your farm system.
Yeah, and like I said, you're number 1, number 2, number 3, and who are those guys? Bobby Miller, Vargas, Bush. Those are all your top 3 guys. So are you going to give them up for Juan Soto? I don't think the Dodgers are going to do that.
No, I don't. I find it hilarious that how these things get started, and just yes, the photoshopping of him wearing 22. I know was very upsetting to you.
Yeah.
You don't think Kershaw would let him wear 22?
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
So if Kershaw leaves and is pitching for the Rangers next year, you don't think Soto could wear 22?
No, I mean, I think as soon as Kershaw leaves, that number gets retired, kind of like Fernando.
Unofficially retired until it is, because Kershaw's number will be retired. Valenzuela's will never be retired for some reason, because he must have just pissed somebody off in the Dodgers organization. Retire 34 shirts available on bleedlos.com. Go check it out. I want to segue before we start wrapping things up. So our sponsor, Bet Online, put something out about World Series odds. I don't know if you saw this, babyface, but so the Dodgers are still the favorite, right? The Dodgers are still the favorite, but there was a team that just entered the World Series right now. They're way down. They're at like plus 1,600, but it was the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim of Orange County. And I've seen a lot of love for the Angels. And our friend of the show, the friend of the carne asada, Dylan Hernandez, wrote an article saying that the Angels were the more exciting team to watch in Los Angeles. Now, let's give Dylan credit. Dylan said the Dodgers are still the better team, but that the Angels were the most exciting team. So I'm wondering if the fact that the Angels are coming up here in these new odds, if people are just really drinking the Kool-Aid on the Angels and buying into that excitement. I mean, look, what's not to be excited about? They have guys like Shohei Ohtani. Taylor Ward is just like destroying the baseball. Anthony Rendon is healthy. They have an exciting lineup.
And you forgot Trout.
And of course, Mike Trout, right? So I get where people are coming from in all this stuff. My question to you is this. I want to take a different angle about this. Would it be better for the Dodgers if nobody talked about them? Like, is it better that everyone is falling in love right now with the Angels, or falling in love with the Mets, falling in love with these other teams? I mean, is it better for the Dodgers to just kind of stay under the radar?
I mean, that's never going to happen, right? I mean, LA, second largest market, the Dodgers, everything that the Dodgers do. I mean, obviously that's never going to happen. But yeah, I mean, hey, you want to talk about the Mets? You want to talk about the Yankees? Stanton, that's just like tearing the ball up and tearing the cover off the ball, and Judge is doing the same thing in New York. Yeah, I mean, Shohei's been tearing it up. I mean, we've never seen a player like Shohei Ohtani, right?
No.
I mean, yeah, give them all the love, but
Wait. What do you mean we've never seen a player like Shohei Ohtani? I mean, Luis Gonzalez pitched for the San Francisco Giants and hit a home run in the same game. That's the same thing that Shohei did.
Well, I want to see him do it, a couple more games, and then, I'll start giving him some love. But, if Dodgers want to go under the, if you don't want to look at the Dodgers, this has kind of always been the thing with the Dodgers. It's like, yeah, they're good, but we're always talking about them like, let's talk about somebody else, right? And that's kind of always what it's been with the Dodgers. It's like, we know the Dodgers are good. We know they got Freeman, they got Mookie, they got Muncy, on and on and on, Kershaw, right? But it's like, oh, okay, let's look at something new, kind of, and that's new right now, right? Everybody wants to see the Angels relevant, right, with guys like Ohtani and Trout, right? Everybody wants to see now the Mets relevant, with all the money that they spent, this offseason and new ownership, right? And Yankees, of course, right? Who doesn't want to see the Yankees relevant in baseball, right? Because when the Yankees are good, it's good for baseball, right? So, I mean, of course, that's going to happen, Dodgers just have to do their thing, and if you don't want to pay attention to us, that's fine. Once it's the postseason, that's kind of when things will change.
All right, so let's wrap things up on the show by previewing the Dodgers road trip on the East Coast. So they're going to go 3 in Philadelphia and then 3 against the Nationals of Washington. So this is going to be a payback, hopefully, for the Dodgers. The Dodgers lost 3 out of 4 to the Phillies here at Dodger Stadium. Hopefully they will repay the favor. As Babyface mentioned earlier, the Show Pods just took 2 out of 3 in Philadelphia. So maybe, I don't know, maybe the Phillies were just hot for a couple of days. Maybe there was just that marine layer at Dodger Stadium was just not there. Hopefully the Dodgers can go ahead and bounce back. And then the Nationals are just not a very good team. But my concern is we've seen this story before in this year. Again, as recent as Pittsburgh, the Dodgers seem to have a letdown against those bad teams. So before we predict what we think the Dodgers are going to do on this road trip, let's go ahead and recap our picks from last week. So last week, both you and Alysha had the Dodgers going 6-2, and then Alonso and myself had the Dodgers going 5-3. So that made Alonso and I the winners. So let's go ahead and update the standings so far. So leading the pack right now with 3 points is myself, because I'm the person who knows baseball the most on this show. Then in second is Alonso with 2 points. And then Alysha and Roger have 1 point. So,
and it's kind of ironic too that you're the one that's keeping score, right?
Hey, we had this recording. Go back to the episodes. We have it on the record. So, we have Alonso and Alysha's picks, even though they're on assignment, they're not here. Alonso is predicting the Dodgers to go 4-2. What do you have Alysha's picks as?
She has the same 4-2.
Okay.
I think what she said. I think she said losing 1 in each series.
Okay. So, do you want me to go first? Since I control the board, I'll go first since I control the board. So, the fact that they're going into Philadelphia makes me a little nervous. So we're going to have Urias pitching Friday night. And Urias got lit up by the Phillies. And then after that, it's going to be interesting who the Dodgers throw. I don't know if it's going to be Gonsolin and Anderson, Anderson, or then Gonsolin, or if they're going to go with a bullpen game, if we're going to see Pepio. So because of the pitching matchups just being a complete toss-up, I think the Phillies are going to win 2 out of 3. And then I think the Dodgers are going to drop 1 to the Nationals. So I think this road trip is going to be, the Dodgers are going to go 3-3 on this road trip. Go ahead, Babyface.
So I'm looking for them to bounce back against the Phillies. And they're going to win. They're going to win 2 out of 3 there. And yeah, same thing in Washington, 2 out of 3. So 4-2 as well.
Okay. So everyone except me is going with the Dodgers having a successful winning road trip for the
hater.
Hey, I hope I am wrong. It just concerns me that this pitching staff right now is kind of, I don't want to say it's in shambles, but I just don't know what you're going to get. So that to me is a little concerning. So that's going to wrap things up for us on the Bleed Lows podcast, ladies and gentlemen. I just, once again, Alonso and Alysha were on assignment. Hopefully they will join us for the next episode. Babyface, is there something you want to say before we sign off?
No, just continue to subscribe to the YouTube channel. We should be doing a live show next week, next Wednesday. What's that? Wednesday, was it the 19th? No, the 25th?
Yes,
correct?
That is correct.
So look for that. We're going live that day as well. So, and you never know who's going to drop by the carne asada. So we have a couple flyers out there for whoever wants to join us. So.
Absolutely. So make sure you follow us, enter the contest, follow us, subscribe on YouTube.
Yeah, we have that contest going on for subscribing to YouTube. We got a Julio bobblehead for giveaway. Somebody, I don't know if you go to TJ more than I do. Do they have like a statue that they sell as you're coming across the border of Julio? Somebody wrote that as a comment.
No, we might have to go to TJ and do an investigative report on that to find out about that.
Yeah, so that'd be kind of cool.
Okay, well, that's going to do it for this week's episode. This episode of the Bleed Lows podcast was presented by Bet Online. So make sure you guys are informed. Bet Online, that's where the game starts. Check out their website and sign up on your mobile device. Use the promo code. So for this week on the Carne Asada, this has been myself and Babyface. Adiós, señoras y señores.